This palace cost more than any building in Ottoman history. 14 tons of gold on its ceilings. The world's largest crystal chandelier. Bathrooms carved from Egyptian alabaster. 285 rooms of impossible luxury. It bankrupted an empire. In 1854, the Ottoman Empire took out its first foreign loan. By 1881, it was no longer a sovereign state. This is the story of the first debt trap in history. And the blueprint is still being used today. They taught you the Ottoman Empire fell because of World War I. That's half true. The Ottoman Empire was conquered 40 years before the war even began. Not by soldiers. By bankers. By 1881, the empire still had its flag, its sultan, its borders. But it no longer controlled its customs revenue, its tax collection, its tobacco monopoly, its salt monopoly, its alcohol taxes, its silk production, its fisheries. 70% of the empire's income was controlled by a foreign agency called the Ottoman Public Debt Administration. The British and French had done something no conqueror had ever achieved. They conquered an empire without firing a shot. To understand how this happened, we need to go back to 1854. The Crimean War. The Ottoman Empire is fighting Russia. Britain and France are their allies. But war costs money. The Ottoman Empire is broke. Sultan Abdülmecid I wants to modernize his military, build railroads, construct palaces to rival Europe's grandeur. He looks at Europe and sees the future. He wants it. And British and French bankers are more than happy to help. For a price. 1854. The Ottoman Empire takes its first foreign loan. 3 million Ottoman pounds borrowed from British and French banks, at 6% interest annually for 30 years. Sounds reasonable. But here's what they didn't tell the Sultan. The loan wasn't issued at face value. Face value, £3 million. Actual money received, £2.2 million. The bankers took £800,000 as a discount before the Ottomans even saw the money. So the empire borrowed £3 million, received £2.2 million, but had to pay back the full £3 million plus 6% interest annually for 30 years. Total repayment, over £5 million. They paid back more than double what they actually received. And that was just the first loan. Once you take the first loan, the trap closes. 1854, first loan for war expenses. 1855, second loan to pay interest on the first. 1858, third loan to pay previous loans. By 1875, the Ottoman Empire had taken out 15 major foreign loans. Total borrowed, over £200 million. Where did the money go? War expenses, 25%. Previous debt payments, 50%. Palace construction and luxury, 15%. Actual modernization, 10%. Half of every new loan went to paying interest on old loans. This is the Ponzi scheme at the state level. The interest payments alone were consuming 30% of the empire's annual revenue by the 1870s. But the European banks didn't deal directly with the Sultan. They had middlemen. The Galata Bankers. Wealthy Ottoman Greeks, Armenians, and Levantine families who acted as intermediaries between the Sultan and European banks. They negotiated loans on behalf of the Sultan, took massive commissions, often 10 to 20% of each loan, and provided financial advice that always amounted to the same thing. Borrow more. The most powerful families were the Baltazars, the Commandos, the Zarifi brothers. They became fabulously wealthy, facilitating the empire's destruction. And they had every incentive to keep the loans flowing because every new loan meant another commission. And nowhere was the empire's addiction more visible than Dolmabahçe Palace. Built by Sultan Abdülmecid I to replace the outdated Topkapi Palace, and show Europe that the Ottomans were still powerful. Construction cost, 5 million Ottoman gold pounds. The empire's total annual revenue at the time, approximately 10 million gold pounds. The palace cost half a year's revenue for the entire empire. To finance it, the Sultan borrowed more. While soldiers weren't being paid, while tax collection was collapsing, while infrastructure crumbled, the Sultan was installing the world's largest crystal chandelier. A gift from Queen Victoria. A symbol of the empire's misplaced priorities. Dolmabahçe wasn't just a palace. It was a monument to imperial delusion. By 1876, the Ottoman Empire could no longer hide the truth. Total foreign debt, £200 million. Annual debt payments due, £12 million. Total annual revenue, £20 million. The empire would have to spend 60% of all revenue just to service the debt. There wouldn't be enough left to run the government. Sultan Abdülmecid II had just taken power, handed a bankrupt empire. And on October 6, 1876, during the holy month of Ramadan, he issued a decree. The Ottoman Empire declares a moratorium on half of its debt payments. In other words, we can't pay. We are broke. European bondholders panicked. Ottoman bonds became worthless overnight. Investors lost fortunes. And the European powers decided never again. They would make sure the Ottomans could never refuse payment again. After 5 years of negotiations, the European creditors made their demand. We want direct control over your revenue sources. The Ottoman Empire had no leverage. No money. No options. On December 20, 1881, the Ottoman Public Debt Administration was established. What was the OPDA? An international financial organization embedded within the Ottoman government. Representatives from Britain, France, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Italy, and the Ottoman Empire itself. With direct control over specific Ottoman revenue streams. The tobacco monopoly. The salt monopoly. Alcohol and spirits taxes. Silk production taxes. Fisheries revenue. Stamp taxes. Tribute from Eastern Rumelia. Customs revenue from several ports. Total, approximately 70% of Ottoman state revenue. 7 out of every 10 coins collected in the Ottoman Empire went directly to the OPDA. The Ottoman government never even touched it. Here's how the system worked. OPDA agents, not Ottoman officials, collected taxes directly from the population. All revenue went to OPDA headquarters in Istanbul first, not the Ottoman treasury. The OPDA paid European bondholders first. Whatever was left over went to the Ottoman government. The OPDA also monitored trade, regulated production, set prices for monopoly goods, and controlled infrastructure projects. Railway construction. Port development. All under OPDA oversight. Effectively, the OPDA became a parallel government. The Sultan still sat on the throne. The Ottoman flag still flew. But the real power was in the hands of European creditors. This is what financial colonization looks like. No soldiers. No invasion. No conquest. Just debt. The Ottoman debt trap wasn't unique. It was a prototype. Egypt, 1876. Massive debts to European banks, default, British-French dual control established. Egypt loses financial sovereignty and eventually becomes a British protectorate. Greece, 1893. Sovereign debt crisis. International Financial Control Commission established. Foreign control over Greek finances until 1978. China, 1900s. Boxer Rebellion indemnity. Foreign control over Chinese maritime customs. Revenue redirected to European powers. Latin America, 1980s. Debt crisis. IMF structural adjustment programs. Loss of economic sovereignty. Greece again, 2010s. European debt crisis. Troika control. Greek assets sold to foreign creditors. Modern examples. Sri Lanka, 2022 default, Chinese debt trap. Zambia, Chinese debt, copper mines collateralized. Pakistan, IMF conditionality, loss of policy autonomy. The method changes. The outcome doesn't. Debt is conquest without armies. Here's the blueprint. This is how you buy a country. Step 1, the bait. Offer loans at attractive interest rates. Market them as development aid, modernization, infrastructure. Make borrowing easy, even encouraged. Step 2, the hook. First loan goes well. Some infrastructure gets built. Encourage more borrowing. Increase dependency on external financing. Create the habit of debt-financed growth. Step 3, the trap. Loans come due. Interest payments consume a growing percentage of the national budget. Country needs to borrow more to pay old debts. Debt spiral begins. Step 4, the crisis. Country realizes it can't pay. Approaches creditors for relief. Creditors offer restructuring with favorable terms for themselves. Step 5, the takeover. Creditors demand control over revenue sources, policy changes, privatization, austerity, market opening, asset sales. Ports, mines, utilities sold to creditors. Loss of economic sovereignty. Step 6, permanent extraction. Country becomes permanent debtor. Economic policy dictated by creditors. Natural resources and strategic assets controlled by foreigners. Sovereignty is symbolic, not real. This is the modern empire. Not flags and soldiers. Debt and interest payments. The Ottoman Empire officially ended in 1922. The OPDA was dissolved in 1924 when the Republic of Turkey was established. But the debt? The debt wasn't fully paid until 1954. 73 years after the OPDA was established. 100 years after the first loan was taken. 3 generations of Ottoman and Turkish citizens paid for Sultan Abdülmecid's palace. The palace still stands. A museum now. Tourists walk through taking photos of the golden ceilings and crystal chandeliers. A monument to the most expensive mistake in Ottoman history. History books tell you the Ottoman Empire fell because of World War I. That's true. But it's not the full truth. The Ottoman Empire lost its sovereignty in 1881. By the time World War I started in 1914, the empire had been financially colonized for 33 years. World War I didn't kill the Ottoman Empire. It just buried the corpse. The real death happened in 1881 when the bankers took control. And this is why they don't teach you this version of history. Because if you understood how the Ottoman Empire was really conquered, you'd recognize it happening right now. The Ottoman debt trap teaches us 3 things. Lesson 1, debt is a weapon. Cheaper than war. Less visible than occupation. Permanent in its effects. Morally defensible because they borrowed willingly. The British and French spent millions in loans to control an empire worth billions. And when the Ottomans couldn't pay, they took everything. Lesson 2. Sovereignty is economic, not symbolic. You can have a flag, a government, an army. But if you don't control your revenue, you're not sovereign. Economic independence is true independence. The Sultan still sat in Dolmabahçe Palace. But European bureaucrats decided how much money he could spend. That's not sovereignty. That's theatre. Lesson 3. The trap is designed to be inescapable. First loan seems reasonable. Each subsequent loan becomes necessary to pay the previous one. The system is designed to create dependency. Default triggers even worse terms. No way out except total surrender. The Ottoman Empire tried to default in 1876. The punishment: complete loss of financial sovereignty. Sultan Abdülmecid wanted to show Europe that the Ottoman Empire was still great. So he built the most expensive palace in the empire's history. With borrowed money. By trying to prove the empire's strength, he guaranteed its destruction. The palace still stands today. Millions visit every year. They admire the gold, the chandeliers, the luxury. But they don't know the price. This palace cost an empire. Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. The Ottoman Empire learned too late. Debt is conquest without armies. And the bankers